thank you, Mom, for coming on. Usually I have people introduce themselves and say what they do, but this is kind of a special um this is a special episode. I was thinking like usually I'm always sometimes I know it like weeks in advance of who I'm going to talk to and this week was, I was like, okay, who am I going to talk to? Nobody really wanted to talk before the holidays and I'm like, "Oh, it's the holidays. Let me do like is there something like a special holiday thing I can do?" And I thought maybe Mom can come on. Maybe it's time for Mom to come on. And the first episode I think I did with I was gonna adjust that, but whatever. The first episode I did with Karina and her friend when they were just starting high school, and that's like still one of the most popular episodes. And people always tell me like, bring on regular people, right? Because you have people love the even though he's not regular anymore, he's got to be a Hollywood star. I mean, what do you think about Chris? The big news. My brother was on. My brother Chris was on. We did our first. That was a first in-person videotaping of a podcast, and I just had deja vu. That's weird. I'm talking to you on a podcast. I had just had deja vu. That's weird. And now he just got. I mean, I don't know if we should. He got it right. I mean, he got the commitment and everything, right? He got.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He got starred. He's starring in a lead in a play that's going to run for 10 weeks in Chicago. How does it feel, that your son, your youngest son, your younger son is going to be a movie star or a theater star?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying with you, I mean, I'm really happy where you're at in life, but no surprise to me. I mean, you've always been
Nah,
some.
come on now. A little bit of surprise.
No, no, you've
When I was
always
coming
worked.
home dripping wet with my clothes in my hand because I had been swimming in the town fountain in the middle of the night.
You know, as a parent, you can always tell something about your kids. As a parent, I'm sure you can tell when your kids are in trouble, but you can also see that magic in them. And I've always seen it in the both of you. And I've always said, pursue that because remember the star thing when you were kids? It goes back to that. Um, I've always seen it. And as far as Chris, he's a very hard worker, and we've seen that he's always had that passion. Like you said, I mean, putting on plays, and he's always been on the dramatic end too. So I'm very happy. I mean, I ecstatic would be more of how I feel. I mean, we're in this journey, all of us together with him, and I think it's incredible.
Yeah, and
Can't wait to see where this ends.
and I think it's just the beginning. He just started in September, and he's been on a TV show, two movies. We just saw a rough cut of a movie that he killed. I think he was
It
way
was
better than the
incredible.
guy. Yeah, he was way better than that. He's so good at expressing like passion. Like when he has to fly off the rail, like you can see that he taps into that real easily, and it's very natural. Like the other guy, like when somebody you can tell like when an actor doesn't like yelling or it feels weird yelling that they come across like they're acting as if they're yelling. But Chris, when he's yelling in a scene, he's yelling. That's Chris.
It's almost like he's harnessing that special energy that he has and reserved somewhere. And it's all very controlled. And I love to see him acting because it's all very controlled.
Yeah. And he studies it, and he's committed, and he's like me when I like something, when I want to do something, I get obsessed with it, right? And I just like try to find out everything I can about it and practice and just become obsessed with it, right? But anyways, thank you for coming on. I know a lot of people don't. Some people who who you would think should come on a podcast are sometimes afraid to come on a podcast. So I thank you for coming on, Mom. And I wanted to bring you on to talk to you about your childhood. You were born in Honduras, 1965, and you stayed there until what? You were
I
7, right? You came in
um
72.
came in 72, June of 72. So it was
You were
right before
6.
my seventh birthday.
And what do you remember about Honduras?
What do I remember about it? Everything. I mean, it was an incredible childhood.
That's not what you
Back
told me. You told me that you had a terrible.
right. No, no. When you look back on your life,
Yeah.
especially when you get older, you appreciate things that you probably didn't appreciate back then. And when I look at pictures of Honduras when I was a child, oh my goodness. Like I was playing in the Garden of Eden every day, while kids are out here playing in playgrounds that they thought were so cool. I mean, we were allowed to roam for miles and miles in the tropical land there. So I mean, we had trees and we cut down branches, and you guys would make forts here with blankets, and we were cutting out branches and making real forts for real. So I
Yeah.
mean, you could imagine what that was like. I mean, we were poor, probably had one meal a day, if that sometimes, but you're a kid, you're not thinking about that stuff.
Now, I mean, now
You're
I have.
enjoying the moment.
Sometimes I have one meal a day because I'm so busy, or I'm either that or intermittent fasting. That's that's so funny that you. How does it feel to go from you were raised with one meal a day? You probably were a kid fantasizing about what kind of foods were out in the world that you could eat, and now you have a son who's so bougie that he does intermittent fasting. He has to like watch what he eats.
It's funny because let me go back to when I said that we were having one meal a day. I have to go back because anybody that comes from a Latin American country would say to me, no, no, no. Again, I mean, I lived in the Garden of Eden, and there all the fruit that you could possibly imagine. I mean, I remember on our property, we had a big avocado tree. And sometimes I'd walk with my cousin to the avocado tree and I'd sit there and eat two, three, four avocados till my belly ached. And it was delicious. Or oranges, or I mean, bananas, all that stuff was all over the place. It's just sometimes we think of food as in terms of just meat and potatoes, which
Right, like
is,
a big
yeah,
spread or something like that.
right.
Um, and I mean, so we didn't even name the town Santa Lucia, right? Which is
Santa Lucia. Yes, I came from the Valley of the Flowers, is what it was called. There were beautiful flowers growing everywhere, and you would see the women in the town going to the city in the morning with the baskets filled with different flowers, and they would put the basket, balance it on their head, and that's how they would get to the town in the bus, and then they sell them and come back at the end of the day. It was incredible. I mean, looking back on that, that was incredible.
like when I went the last time I went was what 2016, and we went to Santa Lucia. We took a bus, but by then the road is paved and everything like that. And Grandma was telling me like back when you were born, like it took forever to go from Santa Lucia to Tegucigalpa. You were born in Tegucigalpa. I saw the grandma pointing at the hospital that you were born in.
Yeah, no, when I was there, it was you saw the bus on Saturday, I think it came in once a week that I remember. But then again, I mean, I was a kid. I was
Yeah.
running around, playing, exploring. I mean, you saw how it was, and imagine being a little kid. I mean, you were an adult and you're able to walk everywhere, but imagine being a little kid and you've got cousins, and I was the only female besides my sisters, but I was the one that liked to explore. I was the one that liked to run around, and I got into trouble too many times, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember ever going to Tegucigalpa when you were a kid?
Actually, we lived in Tegucigalpa right before we
Oh, you're
came to the
right.
United States. Yeah.
But that was when grandma goes to the states in when 70, right, or something like that. 71 or something.
Pardon me, she left the States?
No, when she
Or
went to the states.
yes, it was around 71, a year, yeah, before we came out here.
And so, what did you think about that? Like, what did you know where she was going? What did you think about that? Do you remember what you
You
thought?
know what? It's so funny because I have recollections of my childhood up to when I was 4 years old, or 2 years old, actually, which your grandma thinks it's extraordinary, but I do have some memories. But I do remember that conversation exactly when my mom said, I'm going to the United States. And I remember crying and saying, no, no, you can't leave me. And then she said, after all that, she said, but I'm going to buy you so many pretty little rings and necklaces and bracelets. And then I said, okay, you can go then. But it was hard. I mean, it was really hard. I thought she abandoned us, because I mean, right now, I mean, kids are growing up with social media and everybody's got a cell phone. I think I've seen little 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds walking around with cell phones. And to not have that back then, I remember there was one phone and it was the town phone, and you had to walk, I would say probably a 20-minute walk to get to there. And if you needed to call, they did the old fashioned thing where you pick up a line, I guess. I don't know, but you know what I mean? The old fashioned black phone that,
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember that if,
You have to dial the operator. You have to tell the operator who you wanted to call
yeah,
and shit.
yeah. And I mean, you're a kid, so you obviously, you don't understand any of that stuff. I mean, I come from a third world country, and just, I mean, can
You
you
said
imagine?
you come from a third world country. I mean, a lot of I can't say that I come from America, right? Um, and even if you come from Mexico, it's that's pretty developed compared to Honduras, right?
Right.
How does it feel coming from Honduras, especially now when you see like Honduras is like in the news a lot in the past few years? Like before when I was a kid, nobody knew where Honduras was. Honduras was never talked about in the media or anything, and now you see Honduras all the time, right? Honduran migrants and stuff like that.
It's so funny because when I look at that, I think of when we came, and I remember how my mom would tell us, "You have to be quiet, don't be noticed." You're coming here, you're looking for an opportunity, but don't be noticed, stay quiet. And when I see stuff like that, it just, it's, to me, it's strange. I understand why everybody wants to come here. I really do. Oh my goodness. To me, it was like I lived life because I was living life back then. And I went straight from life into fairy tale because I mean, that's the only way to describe it when you come from a third world country. I mean, where else can you have everything that you have here, the opportunities that you have here? I mean, the fact that I have a job I can go to every day, I have money, I can travel. People can't do that in a third world country. They can't have dreams like that. So to come here, you're buying into being able to have all that. So it's incredible. Um, and I can see why people want to come here.
Yeah, I always say like I've had a few Hondurans on. I had a Honduran rapper. I don't know if you saw that episode. He's in
I did, yeah.
California, and like like what I'm doing right now. I have a podcast. I mostly work from home. Now I make good money. Like you can't do that in Honduras. Like
No.
if people knew how much I made and knew what I did, they would think they would I don't know, they'd be crazy, right? But like I got to be the only Honduran American that I know. I know of a few Honduran Americans, right? Like America Ferrera, right, who's Honduran American, um, and famous. That's it, right? Um,
America Ferrara, she's from Honduras.
that's what I just said.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah, I just
sorry.
said that. Like, yeah, she's
Wait, isn't
ugly.
there another like a comedian or something? There's a um oh my
Oh, you're
goodness,
talking
I'm drawing
about
a blank.
Carlos Mencia.
Yes.
Carlos
Yeah.
Mencia is half Honduran, half German, right?
Yes.
Uh, Ned Holness or something was his birth name, and yeah, he got shit for that because he also tried to like he played himself off as a Mexican, right? But he was Honduran. He is Honduran. But yeah, I mean, I got to be the only Honduran, I guess. I mean, I guess America Ferrer is maybe my age, around my age. But again, having a podcast, doing all the stuff that I do, that's not. I mean, do you talk to people that you grew up with? Did you ever keep in touch with anybody that you grew up with?
Well, no, not really. No, not really.
Like you've
I,
never have you heard of anything of anybody you grew up with? Because like when I
no.
went when we went, in 2016 we went with Titi Rixa, your oldest sister, and my oldest aunt, and we went to where I guess she lived or something, and there was somebody there her age who she grew up with or something like that, and it was weird. Like, and we they talked. Junior was there, my cousin, his mom, my Titi Rixa, my aunt Ritza. And when we were walking away, she was saying like it was weird. It was she said something like, or there was like this feeling of like that could have been her. I think maybe Junior said that. That could have been my mom. Like my mom would have, if they never left, my mom would be here having a little store out of her house, like everybody in Santa Lucia has. So it'd be interesting, like if you heard from people like your age, and they, knew what you were up to and knew what your family was like and stuff like that.
No, because since I left when I was a little girl, then that was it. It was in itself a real shock to come to a country where, I mean, you saw where I grew up. I mean, there were trees everywhere, and then you come here and there's like buildings. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that in itself was strange, and the language. I mean, not understanding the language. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. I never liked the fact at first that I didn't fit in, and fitting in meant learning how to speak English.
I I I think I've mentioned before with somebody that I attribute a lot of my becoming a writer to you, because you always had this hang up about speaking well, enunciating, good diction, and I remember when you started saying pardon when we were kids. You were the only adult that I knew in my real life that said pardon, and we'd make fun of you, but right, that even when a kid makes fun of something, it's still an influence, right? I mean, it still influences who you become. Um, so when you came, like, that was your first time on an airplane then, right? I mean, you came on
You
an
know,
airplane?
yes, we did. Yeah, I know. I didn't row a boat or anything. No, we came on an airplane. That wasn't my first time though. I do have memories of before that we went to La Ceiba, my mom
I never
and I
knew that.
remember going. I believe I had an uncle somewhere in La Ceiba that or somebody that was a fisherman, and grandma, your grandma, we went there, and I remember being on an airplane. But you know what? I was younger than
Yeah.
probably 5 years old, so it's very vague. But when I told your grandma, she said yes, we did go, and it was on a small airplane.
And so do you remember landing in Chicago, what you thought, what you saw?
I remember that day exactly
Yeah?
because I remember that I was pinned to the window and I thought it was the most incredible thing. And looking at those lights, I thought for sure that we were like in outer space or, like I said before, fairy tale land. It was incredible. It was just like the most amazing thing ever. And I remember the flight attendant asking us if we wanted coffee and all that stuff. Now it makes sense, but back then we didn't understand anything. I mean, we were hungry, but we couldn't tell her we were hungry because we didn't know how to communicate. But it was, I mean, landing that whole day, I remember just it was incredible.
Is that when you had to get? I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you want to talk about the process of having to come to the United States?
Um, I remember, well, okay, like what part do you want to
Do you
talk
know what I'm
about?
talking about?
Okay, there was a lot of stuff going on before we came to the United States then. You have to get all your vaccines because you don't want to bring anything into, another country. So we had it was a process for like a week. You have to get your vaccines, and obviously I come from a third world country, so we have parasites, and so you're giving medications so all those parasites could leave your body, which thinking back, you're like, oh my goodness, like how can you not die? You have parasites in your stomach and you're able to live. But then again, I think what doesn't kill you makes you stronger because here I
Mm-hmm.
am today. So, and then, there's all the other stuff. I mean, they got to make sure you don't have lice. They got to make sure you don't have any diseases and so forth.
Well, then they
So
say that
after,
that you had a bunch of worms in your stomach, all three of you, right?
oh my goodness, yeah, like when that stuff starts coming out, I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. All those faint of heart should walk away right now
You don't talk
because
to your coworkers or any friends about
oh,
that, right?
I don't shock them too much. I try to tell them little bits, and they know about all this a little bit at a time. Like they look at me sometimes like I'm making stuff up, but anybody that has had this journey understands the journey completely. Those parasites come out of your body. They're coming out of every orifice. They're coming out of your mouth, your nose. I mean, I remember, you're puking and that stuff is coming out and you're pulling them out I mean, imagine that. Yeah. I mean, you
I
think
gotta
you've
eat
been through
tonight,
some
man.
stuff. You think you've been through some stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, you have no idea.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the water that we drank there, we thought it was delicious. You're running around, you're a kid, you're thirsty, and you're drinking water from the well. And little do you know what you're, consuming, what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of skipped ahead. I skipped ahead, but like, yeah, I mean, Santa Lucia. What kind? You mentioned it, but there was like what one road at the time. There was no electricity. When when it was nighttime, you had to walk with a torch.
It was prehistoric times, what you would call prehistoric times. I mean, you had an oak, and everybody had a big oak in their house, and you lit this oak. It's not a torch, but an oak. It's actual wood, and at night, you sent the kids to go and buy bread because there was a lot of bartering going on. So when we stayed back in Honduras, my grandma had a lot of cattle, so they slaughtered a cow or a pig, once a month or something like that. And the whole town would know so and so is going to slaughter a cow or so and so is going to slaughter a pig. And then the lady that baked the bread would say, well, I'll give you bread and you give me meat, and people would just barter or people would just buy stuff from each other if they could. It was a beautiful way of living. I think it was that's how life is supposed to be.
And so you land. I mean, I've heard stories of like how you were when I was in El Manchen, and what's grandma's cousin's name, or is that her? That's not her
uh
cousin. That's her aunt's. That's her cousin, right?
yeah,
Marta.
that's Marta, yeah, her cousin.
Marta would say that she pointed to an intersection. She's like, I remember your mom was there, and she was on top of a car or something,
It
and she
wasn't even
said,
a car anymore. I mean, you see what it basically, there were no wheels on it. It was like a not even a shell of a car, a piece of a bus. It was. And I remember that the kids would say, oh, I'm going to be a bus driver when I grow up, just like those bus drivers. This is when we were in the city already. And I was introduced to buses and a little bit of traffic, nothing like I'm used to here now. But I remember the first time that they allowed me, because I was a girl, this was a boys' thing. They were allowed to drive the buses, not girls. And I remember the first time that I said, I want to drive the bus. And they're like, no, that's not for girls. And they finally, I said, yeah. And they let me be the bus driver. And I remember, yelling out the routes, like, this is where we're stopping, like, El Manchen, calle, whatever, calle 12, calle 13. And I said to them, I remember, I said, one day I'm going to drive a really nice car. And they all looked at me like, and they laughed all at the same time.
wow. And so you land, and now you're an immigrant, and you don't know the language, and I mean, I could just imagine you like you were like a like me, like when I was that age, gangly, right? Kind of awkward. They call it angular, right? All limbs, and I mean, I'm sure people picked on you. You said that when you first you land, you start living in. Do you live in Logan Square right away, right off Palmer
Uh,
Square,
right off of Kedzie, yeah. Right
off of
away, yeah.
Kedzie? I
Yeah.
just met
Right
somebody
in the
who
same area. Yeah. Right in the same area. If you're familiar, Kedzie and what is that? The light there by where the
Palmer.
bomba is?
Oh no,
Huh?
Armitage.
Armitage. Right on that corner, that's where we started living first.
I was talking
We've stayed in that area the whole time, obviously.
to a Puerto Rican activist. I think she's maybe in her. I couldn't tell by her voice, but I went maybe 50, and she grew up on Palmer and Kedzie. And I'm like, so, my mom lived in the yellow building off of Kedzie, right? She goes, oh, I know exactly where that's at. It's like, that's crazy. It's such a small world. You know who
Oh
she
my
sounded like?
God.
She sounded like Titi Maria. She was talking to me in English, right? But she sounded exactly like Titi Maria. And it's funny how I feel like Puerto Ricans, and you can talk about this too, because it's interesting, right? You're Honduran, but you kind of once you came to Chicago, you were raised kind of Puerto Rican, right? Why
Yes.
explain that? I mean, you also grandma had a boyfriend, right? Puerto Rican boyfriend.
Well, grandma's boyfriend, Victor Manuel Casiano, he was the greatest influence in our life. He was an incredible human being. He really helped to mold us into the people we are today. He was a really kind man, and he was a really good cook. He introduced your grandma to, arroz con gandules, asopado de camarones, and tostones, and all that. I mean, he was a really excellent cook. I mean, she's got to give him props because that's where she learned how to cook that stuff. And
He taught you how to make crepes. Crepes is a huge, big deal in my family. It's
no,
been
that
a
was
oh
no,
no
that no, the crepes, that was Lee, your
oh I didn't
grandma's
know that.
best friend. Her son Johnny used to make crepes. He was my age. I think we were about 9 years old when he introduced me to crepes. And then I said he used to make them for the family, and I said, teach me how to make them. And he taught me how to make them.
Yeah, when I
So,
growing up, I'm talking to the audience now. The just to explain, right? When I was growing up, rolly ups, we called them rolly ups, right? We didn't call them crepes. I didn't know the word crepe until maybe I was like in high school, maybe college, and I'm like, oh, those are rolly ups. Oh, they're French. Like I thought they were a Honduran thing for a while. I thought everybody ate them, right? But yeah, to this day, I still, I haven't made rolly ups in a long time, but you make rolly ups. You grandma makes rolly ups. Titi Maria makes rolly ups. You guys all make rolly ups, but like I think everybody likes your rolly ups the best, right? Crepes. We're
I,
calling rolly ups.
yeah, they're crepes. Yeah, they're crepes. They're delicious. But yeah, that was Johnny, that taught me how to make those. And then I was the one that would make them, and then I pretty much taught everybody how to make them.
And so you moved to you. So you're moving into Logan Square in '72. I mean, that's when the neighborhood's super Puerto Rican, right? I mean, now I heard since the past 10, 20 years, there's actually more Mexicans in Humboldt Park than Puerto Ricans. But like back then, it was super Puerto Rican, right?
Yes,
And
definitely. I would say back the way that I remember it though, it was Puerto Ricans and African Americans.
and then and you told me that there was no ESL at the time, so like they just thought you were like if you couldn't keep up, they just held you back or whatever. They just said you were dumb or whatever. Were you held back
Yeah,
ever?
I was, the thing is, I started school very early. Like back in Honduras, I was learning. I
Grandma was
was
a
a
teacher,
kid,
right?
right? And then when grandma came to the United States and I was with my grandmother, um, in the daytime, I would go to the school, and there was like, it's like sort of on a hill. So I can go behind the hill and I can see inside the classrooms. And I would sit there and listen to the lessons every day. And I remember learning my Roman numerals before I even came out here. And I remember learning Roman numerals up to like 50 before I came out here. And the teacher caught me one day and she said, come in, you can come in the classroom. And I enjoyed all that. So yeah.
And so, what school did you go to when you first came?
Darwin School, Charles Darwin School. I'm
Where's
Belden.
Belden? And then
Yeah.
did you go to Stowe too?
I did, yes. That
That's
was
crazy.
yeah.
Because then Brittany went to Stowe. And then, I mean, times are tough, right? I mean, it's just grandma and then you three, right? You're the middle, then Titi Maria, and then Titi Maria's the youngest, and Titi Rix is the oldest. I mean, and when you moved, what was grandma's job at the time? Because she had before she moved, she said that she worked at I think she worked at a toy factory, right? She worked at Playboy, I think, right, with the machines and the printing, not in front of the camera, but in the
Right.
factory.
Yeah, let's get that straight.
Yeah,
No, but
Playboy used
before
to be headquartered in Chicago, right?
yes. But
And
before we go on to that, let me go back to coming here and not knowing how to speak English.
mm,
To me, that was the biggest hang up. And I remember that I would tell myself, I need to learn how to speak English. I need to learn how to read. There was a group in the class, and it was probably like four kids, and they were the fastest readers in the class. And they were, of course, none of them were Latinos. They were all probably middle class, white kids. And I said, I love the fact that they could read so fast, and I remember hearing the words. To me it was like music, how beautifully they read, and the teacher encouraged that. Like every day there was reading time, so they would all take turns reading, and then it was a whole challenge of who was the fastest reader. And I wanted to be the fastest reader. Here I am, somebody that can't probably put together 5 words in English. And I said, I want to be the fastest reader. So they had put me back one grade here. And I remember going home every day after school, and literally I taught myself how to read from trying to remember how kids, how they were speaking, the words they were saying, and just, I don't know how it happened, but I with the help of books and wanting to learn, I taught myself how to read. And within a year, I was the fastest reader in the class. I remember the day that it happened. I remember that everybody would say, "Oh, who's next? Her? Oh, no, she doesn't speak English. She's an immigrant. And then I remember kids saying, she's an alien, and they laughed. But by this point, I understood everything they were saying. And I remember one day it was a substitute teacher, and they said, no, she can't speak. And I said, let me read. And I remember that I read faster because they had the stopwatch. And I remember that everybody took a turn and it was my turn. And I remember that I went faster than all of them. And they could not believe it. And I couldn't believe it. And that was the beginning of, I loved to read.
yeah, it reminds me of like I just reported on a story today about this girl in a middle school in Orlando. She's Venezuelan. And she got beat up by a bunch of her fellow classmates, right? Because she's Venezuelan, supposedly, right? Reportedly. But and then people commenting were like, "No, this doesn't make sense. There's a lot of Latino kids at the school. Why are they picking on her because she's Venezuelan?" And I'm like, and I explained it like it's just simple. Like she's different, right? Yeah, they're all Latino, but maybe there's not a lot of Venezuelans, right? So let me ask you, like, did you go to? I'm sure you went to schools where there was a lot of Latino kids, at least Puerto Ricans, right?
Yes.
So but did you pick on you because you're Honduran? I would think that at that time nobody knows where Honduras is in the 70s.
I think that for the most part, people always pick on somebody just because they don't understand.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
It's not, I think a lot of times it's not about hatred or any of that. I think it's
Right,
just you see somebody different, and
right.
then you just like, what is that? I can't say that any of the kids when I was growing up, they were hateful, because no, they were not. They were just kids. Kids don't really care. They don't have a filter.
Right.
But I don't no, there was never anything that was hateful. I think that maybe if you're going through something like that and you're able to go home and talk to your parents, or a parent that will say to you, listen, that happens to everybody. Every kid goes through something. Just I don't know. I maybe let kids know that you're not all that different. Or
And
I
so
don't know.
grandma I think worked at a factory when you guys came, right?
She worked at Stifel Lamp Company, and they're still there.
Damn.
Very expensive lamps, lighting they sell there. So yeah,
But you
and she
guys were
also,
eating like egg. You guys were just eating egg and tortilla every day, right?
it was eggs with salami. My sister Rixa was the cook because grandma was never home. She was holding one or two, or there was even a time she had three jobs. And so we wouldn't really see her. So it was your aunt that was the gourmet. She was making incredible meals out of eggs and salami, chicken. Um, that's about it.
And when did she get the store? And how did that happen? And what did you guys think? Like you guys must have thought, oh, we're coming up.
Before the store, was it the house? I want to say it was the house that, no, the store came first. That was in the 70s, probably 77, 78. She went into a partnership with two other people that she worked with. Before that, I mean, she would buy like beaded necklaces, take them apart, and out of one necklace make, three or four.
Flip it.
Uh, she
Like
would
how
go
people
to
do
the,
coke, like how
yeah,
trap
cut
people
it
do
up.
cocaine, cut it up, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she would cut up the necklaces and get more like cheaper beads and make these incredible necklaces, take them into work when she worked in the factory, and she was making her money. She would go to the flea market and buy shirts, and or she dressed cute with like really, super cheap clothes that she got at the flea market, and she'd go into work and they would say, "Where did you get that?" And she would say, "Well, I can get you one. What color do you want?" And that's how she started. And people at work said, "You should follow something like that." And she did. And she was very successful at it.
And then you guys end up. She makes so much money that you guys go to a private Catholic all girls school, right? For high school, you graduated
Yes.
there. What was it called?
Holy Family Academy. Yes. It was a nice school. It was a pretty nice school.
In Polish Square, right?
Yes.
And
It was
that's
it
where you
was
met
run by
Dad.
the
Dad was working in a shoe factory, and he must have saw you walking by in your little Catholic girl dress.
it was because your grandma had a store right across the street from where he worked.
Oh, on
I
Milwaukee.
guess he had I guess he'd just come from he'd just gotten out of the military because he served in the army, and he was in Frankfurt, and he must have just gotten out of the military.
And so you have, the rest is history, right? You have me at an early age. You were a senior when you were pregnant with me. Grandma tells a story that you guys went to go get you went to go get measured for a prom dress, and then a few months later when it goes to fit the dress, it doesn't fit, and you're like, you play, oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And she says she knew right away what was going on at that moment, like. Um, and I wanted to ask you, like, obviously now, like Logan Square is like one of the hottest neighborhoods in the country. That's crazy.
Incredible, yeah. I mean, how does it go from being the ghetto to being, I don't know, like
Yeah, well,
ghetto
like, let me
chic?
ask you, like, how bad was it when you first moved there? I mean, obviously there was a gang problem. Did it come, or was there already a gang problem when you moved there?
There was always a gang problem there. And I think that pretty much what happens with anything, people start coming a little bit at a time and pushing stuff out, so I think at some point the gangs just probably just felt like they were out of place, or they couldn't pay the rents that they were asking for there, so they left. But there was a huge gang problem there. You couldn't stand outside. I mean, there was one time my sister Rixa, your titi Rixa, was sitting having her coffee on a Sunday, and like looking outside the window. The table was right by the window, so she was having her coffee, and as soon as she got up and went to put her cup in the sink, she just gotten up, and somebody had shot through the window, and it was, yeah, a bullet. So She's lucky that she got up when she did. I mean, that's not the only time we saw that. I mean, we saw somebody, next door to grandma's house, get out of their car, go to the house next door and point a gun to the window and shoot several times. And we saw the person run back out. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of. This is probably the last time that I experienced that. That was probably like 20 years ago, where there was that kind of.
Yeah, because we moved to the suburbs in what, 93 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, was there gang? There wasn't gangs in Honduras when you were growing up. There's gangs now, but there weren't gangs, and there were like
No.
thugs, right? Like
Oh,
criminals, but not
no.
gangs.
I never heard of gangs until I came here. And then obviously not till later on. I mean, I didn't know what that was.
And like what? Well, there's a few things. Like what? How do you? I don't know. I don't even know how to ask. Sometimes I forget that you're from Honduras, and as a kid, I was always hard on you. I was hard on you even as a young adult. But then, like now that I'm older, and I get to and I understand that you're from another country and you came when you were 7, and not only another country. We're not talking about Russia. We're not talking about France or Germany. We're talking about Honduras. Like,
A third world country.
yeah, like
Third
the
world.
Banana Republic, the Banana
I
Republic.
mean, when I came here, I mean, civilization, I think looking back, we were probably 60 years behind,
Yeah,
maybe longer. I mean, I come from a country where I remember the first time I watched the television was your grandma sending her mom a television, and everyone in the town came because they wanted to see this. And I remember them opening it. I remember the day exactly. They took it out of this box and they put it up on the table. And then we had to wait for the generator to go on because the whole town had power from a generator, one single generator, and it was only for 1 hour a day. And I believe it was like from 8:30 to 9:30. And that was it. Once the generator turned off, that's it. There was no lights. Like I said, I mean, there was no lights. I mean, you sat around and you saw how the houses are in Honduras. I mean, you're inside the dirt home, and there's the fire pit, and people sat around there and told stories. Or my favorite thing to do, they had a radio, and like once a week they told stories on Sunday, and you sat around, and it was beautiful because if you have a good imagination, then you put faces, and everything was in your mind like the way you wanted it to be. um but yeah, it was a third world country, and there was no television, no video games. I mean, we entertained ourselves playing with the bottom of the shoe, the sole. And back then we called it tejo. And you know how you do the shoe horn, the shoe horn, is it
mm-hmm.
the yeah, we would play with that. I mean,
What do you mean?
so many
What would
different
you
games.
play? How do you play?
Basically, you would draw a line in the dirt, and then whoever came closest to the line, they won.
I remember being
Or
there in 2011, and yeah, well, first of all, this is 2011. This is in the capital city, Tegucigalpa. There's no there's plumbing, but it's not It's they fill what is that thing called, the
the,
basin.
I know it's a bila, yeah, like a basin,
There's a
yeah.
big basin in the house, right? And I don't know how they fill it, but a water truck comes around every Wednesday, and with warm water, and fills something that fills that basin. And I remember, you can hear them filling it, and everybody's saying, "Oh, time to take a shower because this is when the water's warm." Because on Tuesday nights, that's when there's no water. You can't. People don't even take showers because there's no water, because you have to leave water for the toilet to flush and all that. So the basin's for everything. The basin, you get that water to take a shower with a little plastic container. You use it to flush the toilet. You use it to wash dishes. You use it to make, if you're making anything with water, boil anything. That's all the water you get. And that's 2011 in the capital city. So I can't imagine Tegucigalpa or Santa Lucia in 66, 67, 68. It must have been, like you
Well,
said,
let me tell you, there was no plastic when I was growing up,
no
so it was a
plastic at
gourd.
all.
It was an empty gourd. It was an empty gourd. So you cut the gourd in half and it gets dried up. And that's what you use for your dishes. That's what you use to drink your atole, whatever you're making, your water. Uh, that's what you use for everything. I mean, there's no plastic.
I mean, I didn't know that, but I mean, I loved taking you guys to that fancy steak dinner, especially the one, well, all the dinners that I took you to when you guys were here in what was it,
That was
October,
incredible. Yeah,
September, right? Yeah,
September. That was incredible.
because I got a trip. I was telling Rocio afterward. I'm like, man, I got to remember that they're from Honduras, and they must have, you must get little flashbacks like I do. Even I was born in America, but I even get flashbacks of when I was a kid, like vivid flashbacks that make me realize how far I've come. And yours must be even crazier, your flashbacks, especially when you're at a fancy. We were at the Wolfgang Puck, his best restaurant in Vegas, getting this fancy ass meal, and you must have been thinking of the I don't know if the gourd came to your mind. I don't know what were you thinking when you're in a situation like that, when you're like, what kind of situation brings you back to like, oh shit, I've come a long way.
I've tried to live my life where I try to always remember where I came from. I think it's important. I think sometimes people forget where they come from and they try to act like, that's not me. I tell people at work all the time, like, I came from somewhere really, really poor, a really poor place where everybody, but we were all on the same level. So it was okay. All my neighbors and myself, we were all on the same level. And I remember, at times like that, when you took us out, first of all, I'm happy and I'm, you know, very grateful to you for sharing because, like I said, some people do forget how they got there or where they came from. And you're not that way. And neither is Rocio. I mean, you guys are incredible. I can't tell you that enough. But I remember being a kid. I remember I shared a birthday with one of my uncles. His name is Erasmo, and we have the same birthday. And I remember having one birthday cake when I was a little kid in Honduras, and it was my stepfather bought me a cake, and it was all white with these like little beads on there, really cute cake. Um, whenever I do anything of the sort here, where I'm enjoying something that's you know rich, it brings me back to that birthday cake.
Wow.
And I remember as a little kid having a slice of cake, and it was only one slice that I was allowed to have. It was my cake, but I was only allowed to
Had to
have
share it
one
with
because
everybody.
the adults had to have. And then my grandmother would have all her friends over and neighbors, like, come and look at this cake and come and try it. It's delicious. But it always goes back to that day because I remember saying to myself when I was enjoying this slice of cake, and I've never told this to anybody, but I remember saying, one day I'm going to eat a lot of delicious things. And yeah, I mean, thank you because you fulfilled a lot of that in basically 3 days.
Yeah, that was a fun time, and you got to come back. Um, what was I gonna say? One of the worst things about having this show on Friday night is that like by Friday I'm like almost spent. But what I wanted to say was, like like in Honduras. Well, first of all, what do you think about the way Honduras is now? Like, I mean, it was bad, but it was never, I don't do. It's weird to me that you wouldn't follow. I don't think you follow Honduran politics, but like, why is that? Oh, the other thing I want to answer that, and then we'll talk about your time in the Navy. But talk about like, and Rocio talks about it too. Like I'll say like, Rocio doesn't really follow Mexico politics or news or anything like that because she's like, that's I'm here. And you're kind of the same way, right? You don't really follow. Our family doesn't really
I
follow Honduras politics or stuff like that, right?
No, like I said, I to me this was a wonderful opportunity coming to the United States, and I really love this place. I mean, I love it because I mean, you're able to travel to so many different places, and I felt like in Honduras, I was just there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now that I'm here, it's like I built a life here, and I mean, I do keep up with all that stuff. Like if there's some kind of natural
Well,
disaster,
Honduras just elected
yeah,
a girl, girl. I have to
I
stop saying it,
know
woman president.
that's pretty neat. That is. Um, but there's so much going on here.
Yeah.
And this is where I live. So this is where I'm mostly affected. What happens here?
Wow.
I mean, I can't control what happens there. And what happens there might not directly affect me here. So there's so much going on here,
Yeah.
you know.
And then so you went to the Navy. How old were you? Like that? What? It was like 89, 90, maybe 90.
90. Yeah. I was how old was I? 25 years old.
And you went to the Navy, and I guess you must have done like training at Great Lakes, right?
No, I did training at in Orlando.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was that your first time in
Which
Orlando?
is weird. It's weird because mostly people from here would do training in Great Lakes, but they sent me to Orlando,
Yeah, and then where do you end up going? And how did you find out?
Cuba.
How did you find out you were going to Cuba?
No, I chose it.
Oh, really?
I wanted to do they said if you do isolated duty, they call that isolated duty, then you get extra pay and you get a ribbon for isolated duty. So I wanted my ribbon for isolated duty.
I mean, that's pretty cool that I always tell people that, my mom was at Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. Like, what do you remember about it? I mean, there's very few people who can say that they were stationed at Guantanamo Bay. What was your, what do they call it? Your MO, or what is it?
Yeah, but when I was there, but I know I told you this, the Fugees were there,
Oh, I
you
didn't know
know?
that.
Yes. I got to meet, I
Wait, wait,
also
wait.
got,
Wait, the Fugees were there. How? What do you mean? The
uh,
Lauren Hill?
no, no, what did I mean to say?
Yeah, not the
No, the
Fugees.
Haitian refugees were
Oh
there.
yeah, the refugees.
I got to meet, I got to
These are the
meet,
Fugees.
no, I got to meet, what's his name? The director that, A Few Good Men, that was the director went out there,
Oliver Stone.
Rob Reiner.
Oh, Rob.
Rob
Oh,
Reiner.
yeah, Rob Reiner did A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So I got to meet the whole crew, and
It
actually
was
I was
filmed there
very
at Gitmo.
lucky. No, it wasn't filmed there. What they did was is they went there and got pictures and everything just so that they could go back and recreate stuff. They weren't gonna take all those actors out there.
Right. And so, what was the security like? I mean, this is before, obviously, it's a detention center, and tell me what you think about that. Not before it wasn't. What was it before? It was just a Navy base, right?
It was a Navy base. It was you know, I made the best of it. I think anything in life is your attitude,
Yeah.
you know. I made the best of it. Most people that talk about the military, they say that it was horrible. And for me, it was the most incredible experience. I mean, it was hard work, let me tell you. It was hard work. When I first got to Gitmo, I mean, I was a potato peeler, and being a potato peeler is no big deal, right? Except when you're, you know, peeling thousands of potatoes, then tell me that that's fun. Or when I got kitchen duty scrubbing pots and pans, I mean, for one family that's not bad, but when you're doing it for all these soldiers, and then also, I mean, it wasn't just Navy, it was Marine Corps. I mean, we had the Marine Hill was there, that's where A Few Good Men was based out of, that movie. um but it was hard work, but it was fun.
What was your
My
job?
attitude, what did I was a quartermaster, which is basically in the Navy, a quartermaster is a ship's navigation specialist. So you plot a course. You're the one that has a chart and you plot the course.
And now you do
So
logistics. That's funny, right? That's funny. But you told me that you used to like to go. Didn't you go snorkeling and
yes, I used to love all that. I spent all my free time in the water. It was a 6 mile walk to get to the beach that we all like to hang out at. And we did it every Saturday morning. 6 miles there and 6 miles back. It's well worth it.
And then when you came back, well, not when right when you came back and then we were still living in Chicago, but then, you left dad and we went to the suburbs, and that was the first time I remember seeing a pool. I mean, I'm sure we swam at Humboldt Park, but
Yes.
the first time I saw a pool was in the suburbs, Old Willow Falls, and that's where you taught me, Chris, Junior, and any of the kids in the complex that wanted to learn how to swim. We all learned.
Lisette, yeah. Yeah.
And you were always a strong swimmer, and you to this day you taught us how to swim.
That's
Um,
because I'm the only one in the family that wanted to learn how to swim because your grandma
yeah,
just
afraid of the
instilled this
water.
fear of the water in us. And I see, I don't know if you know this, but I literally drowned when I was in high school. When I went to Holy Family Academy, one of my friends dragged me underwater thinking that I could swim. And I, the third time, I went down and came up. And I remember by the third time when I came up, I couldn't breathe. And there were so many girls in the pool that nobody heard me. And it was my gym teacher, Ms. Rojas, that went in and got me out. And then she brought me back. She did all that, got the water out of my lungs. And I remember that I sped up the water. And then she said, I'm going to call your mom. I'm going to call an ambulance. And then I said, please don't call my mom because she'll kill me. So I said, I'm going to learn how to swim.
And do you
I
talk
don't want to
about
be the kid.
how do you ever tell anybody how you left the Navy and like how the whole situation with that?
I just did tell my husband not long
Oh, he
ago.
didn't know.
It was a terrible situation. That what it is there were a lot of people in there that didn't know how to deal with my situation. And I remember, trying to get help back then because I don't know if you okay, let me briefly tell the story. So
Yeah.
I joined the military. I met this, I was going to church at the time. I had you kids, I was going to church, and the pastor's son was talking about joining the Navy. And he was trying to recruit people because obviously, the more people he got to go with him, then it was better for him. So I remember him saying, oh, I'm going to the Navy. And I'm like, oh, really? I signed up to go to the Army when I was in high school because I was actually going to join the Army out of high school with my friend. And then she couldn't lose 7 pounds. So then she said, I'm not going to join the Army anymore. And then I backed out of it. And so he also backed out last minute. And there was, we were having the problems where your dad was saying that, your dad said, if you love the kids, you have to leave them with me. You have to know that I give them a better life. And you kids would go on weekends with your dad, if you remember, and you would come back
Was he a
and,
Chicago police officer at the time?
oh, yeah, he was a police officer. And I mean, who was I? I was just working at Lake Point Tower as a
I
secretary.
remember that though. I remember I thought you were like rich because I remember you took us once. I remember going there once. I don't know if we went to your office or anything, but you were you were some kind of like a secretary or something. I remember there was like a. Am I just imagining that?
No, basically what I was is a paralegal now that I know what I know. But, they gave me an opportunity. I was working at Lake Point Tower. I mean, it was a very nice job for, a young mom. And, your dad obviously was able to offer you guys a better life. And he, you guys convinced me. And I've never been a selfish person. And to this day, I'm not a selfish person. I can love somebody 100%, but if I know that there's something better for you than me, I have no problem letting you go,
And then
you
I
know?
mean, it's interesting. I never thought of that, but like Rocio had the same situation where she, had to, she decided to let, Karina, my daughter, our daughter, go live with her father for a while she was finishing, her school. And that's kind of the same situation that you kind of were in, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's a selfless act. It's a very
Karina loved her
selfless act.
dad. We loved our dad, and it wasn't like we're like, all right, see you later, mom. You know, like moms get so much shit from little kids, right? It's only later when you realize, oh man, you wouldn't be who you were without your mom. Yeah, however great your dad is, right? Your mom is the cornerstone of who you become. But like, yeah, you were going to the Navy to also hopefully come back in a better position, right?
Yeah, I was young. I was irresponsible. I wasn't mature. I mean, it takes a lot for a person to mature. I mean, I know people that are in their 40s that are not
Yeah.
mature, people in their 60s that are not mature. And I wanted to mature. I knew I had some issues. I mean, I couldn't even get up, you know, on time to go to school sometimes. It was like I wanted to be that person. I would look at adults around me. Like, obviously, I work with attorneys. And I mean, if you look at an attorney, like the attorney that I worked for, one of the attorneys I worked for, and I would see they had it together. And I always said, I want to be like that. I want to be a person that has a schedule and sticks to it. That's always been my thing. Not to be late, to be on time, to the whole schedule thing. And that's what the Navy did for me. It gave me structure, much needed structure.
And then but you left under uh
Not so good.
yeah, not so good. The our we're living with our grandma because he had a drug problem, and so we started living with grandma, right?
But before that, though, no, your dad was married
Yeah, before that,
and
before he was
he was
fine.
doing great.
Yeah,
No, everything was great.
I remember him.
He
He was a
offered you a
bailiff. I remember
great life.
Madeline. I remember being in court and watching Dad. He was the bailiff, and Madeline was the court reporter, the stenographer, I guess, right?
Stenographer. Yeah.
Right there
Yeah.
at Area 5, right there by the brickyard. And but then we started living with Dad. I remember Madeline and Dad getting in arguments. Stuff started to unravel. So then we're living with Grandma, and her house burns down, and that's when you had to come back, right? How'd you find out about that?
And okay, so before that though, I don't know if you're telling it the same way I remember it. So you were living with your dad, and I get a phone call from your aunt Maria, and she's like, Hector started doing drugs. And I'm like, what? Like he's married, he's doing good, and he wanted the kids. And I just signed my life to the United States government. So it's not like I can just get up and leave.
Right.
I go and talk to everybody that I possibly can in there. I'm like, I need to, get out. I need to bring my kids here or get out. You need to help me. No one was able to help me. I talked to everybody that I could possibly talk to. I talked to chaplain. I talked to legal. I talked to everyone, and no one can help me. They would just look at me like, what do you want us to do? And then finally, I get a call from the Red Cross. The Red Cross wanted to put a call through so that I could talk to your aunt, and that's when the whole thing with the explosion in your grandma's house. And I said, you guys need to help me to get out of here. I need to see if my kids are okay. And then I came out here, and again, the red tape, somebody not doing things right. And I wasn't getting my paychecks out there because I was working I did get to go and work at Great Lakes, which was a terrible commute every day.
Yeah.
And
From
they were
Logan
not
Square, from Humboldt Park.
from where Data. I had to take a bus every day. And in the meantime, trying to wait for them to get, so I can get money out here. And I'm like, I need money because I can't. My money's running out and I got to take care of the kids. What do I do? And again, I was faced with nobody knew what to do. So then I had to just go AWOL because I thought, and basically when I went back, I said to them, listen, I only did what you guys taught me. And that is to not leave anybody behind, the buddy system. Don't leave them behind. And I said, I couldn't leave my kids behind. It was, you guys put me against the wall. I wanted to do what's right, but I was in a situation where I needed money, I had to get a job and work.
And you, I mean, so you didn't get, but you came back and you got a job. I remember you worked at Smalley for the longest
Yeah,
time.
and that's weird because normally, with your social, they're able to track you right away and find you and tell you you're going to the brig. And you know what I got? I didn't get, I wasn't dishonorably discharged. And they actually said to me um, that they were very sorry that the military had failed me.
Well, I mean,
That's what they
let's
said.
tell the story. I mean, you left the Navy in what, 92 or something like that, right? And then you don't
Yes.
get caught until what, 99,
Yeah.
98, something like that.
99.
And you, because you ran a
99.
stop sign in the suburbs, and the cop pulls you over, checks your ID, and sees that you have a warrant. That the
Yeah.
Navy's looking for you. And so you go to military court, and they give you, I guess they give you a less than honorable discharge, something like that, right?
Which is not dishonorable.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I remember, yeah, I remember
Because
they gave you a bunch of
because I
swag. They
remember,
gave you a bunch of sweater, Navy sweaters and keychains and stuff like that, right?
yeah, they were the people that I dealt with there were adults. And the people that I dealt with in Gitmo they were still kids.
Do you know? I just
And how
remember
is a
talking to you
kid
right now.
gonna
Like, I remember that when you worked at Smalley, you were one of only two women, right, who got certified to drive a forklift, right?
yes.
And I remember the other girl. She was a black girl, right? And that was your friend.
Yeah,
You.
Darlene Rodriguez, yes.
Oh, she was Latina.
No, she was black, but she was married to a Puerto Rican.
Oh yeah, because I remember she was
She
black,
was,
black, right?
yeah,
Like,
she was really nice. Yeah. She was my best friend.
and you worked a
And I was
graveyard shift. You
also
had to leave at 9. You came home at what time? Like,
Oh, whatever time. If there was overtime, I
mm.
always volunteered. I had mouths to feed. But in the military, I was the only woman that graduated in a class of quartermasters. There was two of us that initially started the class, but the other girl was pregnant, so she had to drop out like a month in. So I was the only woman that graduated from that quartermaster class.
Yeah, I remember you were the tough mom. Like, yeah, I remember, like, you were the only older. You were the only lady, right? We were kids. You're the only lady who could do pull-ups, push-ups, right? Sit-ups. Um, I remember. What was I about to say? Um, I get these ideas and then they just run away from me. But I forgot about it. But so but you're still also you're one of the Latinos who are still permanent resident, right? I mean, do you think ever think of getting your citizenship, or I mean,
Oh, I've wanted to for a very long time, but the whole situation with the Navy, I had gone to try to talk to back then um Rostenkowski, the representative, but he was so deep into all his, what was going on in his life that he didn't have time to talk to me. And then I talked to your grandma, and your grandma really didn't have proper information for me. So basically, I was too busy trying to provide for you guys, you know, trying to get you guys, going on a good path, trying to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. That I was just putting myself aside the whole time and thinking, you know what, I'm fine as long as the kids make it out of this okay. I don't care about me. And then once it came time where I thought, okay, I need to do something about this situation, I think that I was too afraid. And then with the whole Trump, that situation as well kind of complicated things, because then you're like, I've been quiet this whole time, and if I'm heard now, it might not be a positive thing. So
yeah,
basically, like with the Navy,
no, but you should get your citizenship for sure. I mean, there's actually a lot of Latinos who just get their permanent residency and they don't ever take the next step. There's like millions,
Like, I
I
don't
think.
want to be that person. No,
No,
yeah,
you
this
might as well.
country's
I mean,
been
you've
so great
given
to
you've
me.
given it a lot, and it owes you a vote, right? At least a vote.
I don't like to think that though. I don't think that it owes me anything.
Mm.
I think I owe it everything. I
There's a
mean,
lot of
again,
Latinos in the military who think I've had another Latino in the military, and they come from immigrant families, and they're like, yeah, we owe this country everything. Like there's
Oh
nothing
my good.
we can't pay it back enough.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. That I mean, I've said it many times. If if something happens where they ask me, would you go back to the military and fight for this country? Yes, I would. I I believe that I owe this country.
And now after everything we've talked, we're skipping. It was hard a long time, right? Especially working the graveyard shift and barely any making money, and you had 3 mouths to feed, and it was tough. But now you got married a few years ago, and now everything's settled now, kind of, right? And how does it feel? Looking back and how do you feel?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled that all three of my kids are in a really good place in their life. That makes me really happy. I mean, I, I'm so glad you had the opportunity to pursue your dream. I know that for a while there, it seemed like you wanted to give up. I remember the talks we had, but you have an incredible woman,
Mm-hmm.
your support system there. She's an incredible person. And I mean, just to see her success, I mean, they say behind every successful man stands a successful woman and vice versa.
Vice versa.
I mean, yeah, you two are incredible.
Yeah, it's
You're
interesting
my
you say.
favorite super couple, my super favorite superpower couple. I call you guys.
It's interesting because, like, in her circle, like, they don't know anything about me, really. They don't know anything. And so everybody's in her circle. Everybody's impressed by her, rightfully, right? Like, she's amazing. And then in my circle, like, people, I don't like to toot my own horn, but people, they support what I do, and they encourage me, and they think, he has a podcast. And not a lot of people, if it wasn't for me talking about her all the time, people wouldn't think that, a lot of, what I'm doing is because I'm driven to do it, but that I'm able to do it is Rocio, right? I mean, and like said just before this, like, we're working on, to the people in the audience, people listening, watching, we're working on having this situation where we can have a studio, and all set up and everything, and cameras and everything like that, pretty soon. So that'd be amazing. And she found all that. She's the one who found all that. And again, like, I was just telling her, like, yeah, two heads are better than one. Like, if I was trying to do everything I'm trying to do by myself, it would never have come out the way it did, And but yeah, I mean, but sorry, continue.
No, that's incredible. I mean, like I said, I mean, you guys are, you know, it, it's finding that person in your life,
Yeah,
the person that is just the right match for you.
yeah. And I,
And you
I just, when you were here, I apologized to you for being mean to you for so long, and I guess forgave you. I guess, which was, it's a weird thing to say. Forgive you for what, right? But I guess I was just mad because, like, life was so hard, and yeah, like I said, moms are, especially with a single mom. A mom is so easy to shit on, right, and to blame for everything that's going wrong. Like, they're the adult that's in charge of everything, right? So if a kid thinks life sucks, they're gonna blame the adult, right? But, like, looking back now, I mean, Rocio have talked about it a lot. That, like, man, it's crazy to think everything that you've done and everything that you've been through and everything that you've seen. It's insane, like, and even now I find myself, you know, like I think, 1995. Oh, mom was 30 then. Like, that's crazy to me. I'm 37 now, right? So you were 37 in 2002. I was a junior in high school. Like, I can't imagine, and the junior that I was in high school, I can't
Oh my
imagine
goodness.
having that now. And then Chris is a year younger, and then Brittany, like, it's crazy. And I guess, yeah, like you said, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I guess maybe because you're so used, where you came from was so lacking in a lot of stuff, and it was a hard life that, yeah, you had a hard life in Chicago in America, but you were like, oh, this is better than, you were ready, I guess. You were just conditioned to it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, thinking back how I grew up and the things that I had to, that I didn't have, that I wanted. I mean, to this day, I tell people I always wanted. I remember the kids at school. One of the girls had this. It was like a maroon or I think maroon and gold pair of Pumas. And I remember I would tell my mom every year, I want the maroon and, gold Pumas. And she would take me to the five and dime store and buy me tennis shoes that cost like, I think they were like $2 or $3. And those were my gym shoes every year. I was like that kid. And yeah, I just you think you had it bad, but see, I think every kid says the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
Every adult says the same thing. You think you had it bad, I had it worse. But I think I got you beat because I came from a third world
Oh, for
country.
sure. It's not even close. It's not even close. That's what I'm
Because I
saying.
remember I remember you, wanting your Hawaiian punch and bringing your friends over, treating them to Hawaiian punch. I always told my husband Brian that story how, and he laughs because I tell him how I would go grocery shopping like every 2 weeks when I got paid, and you would bring all your friends from the block over, and I'd come, I'd come home, and then all the punch was gone, and then I'd see one of your little friends pouring the last of one of the bottles, and then you'd say, "Oh, there's another one in the closet. My mom got a bunch of stuff." And I remember at night, I told
Man,
him
I'm
I
still
would
the same
cry.
way. That's
I
crazy.
would cry. I would say, "Why would he do that to me?" But you were just a kid.
Yeah.
Again, kids don't do things out of hatred or,
I was just trying to
to
be
get
nice. I
some.
wasn't thinking, you know what? I just wasn't thinking about you.
Exactly.
I wasn't thinking about how you got it, what you had to do to get it. I was just trying to be nice to my friends. To be fair, like, and I'm sure you know this, like when I would go to Adrian's house or Vlad's house, or we would go to Noe's house, or it was the same over there, right? They would give us everything they had, and they got yelled they got yelled at by their parents too. Like it was just, and I guess I'm still like that too, because like when people come to town, I try to be lavish. I try to lavish them with dinners and stuff like that, and people would be like, why? Well, why are you like that? I mean, and I always tell them like, this is how I grew up. Like we grew up in a little, the little group of kids we hung out with, and we were all like brothers, right?
And you remember, were you around when Mohammed came to visit us,
Yeah.
and what he said? He said, "Mrs. Alamo," because yeah, he would, "Mrs. Alamo, I just want to thank you." So he wanted me to drive his new Mercedes that he just had, brought
He
in
became a
from.
doctor or something, right?
Pardon?
He became a doctor or something, right?
Yeah, his dad was one of the top neurosurgeons in the country, one of the top three neurosurgeons in the country, and I think he was going to follow in his footsteps. And he came back to say thank you for. He goes, "I remember that you guys would get pizza and whatever, and you would always include me." And I thought, that was pretty cool. That was pretty neat that we were able to influence somebody that they were actually remembered that we shared what we had with them.
Yeah, Muhammad. We called him Mo. He was Muslim, and we didn't know what Muslim was. We didn't care, right?
No,
All we knew is
no.
that he couldn't eat pork. And I remember one time we had pizza, and we kind of tried to sneak a little piece of pepperoni in this thing. But then it wasn't. We're kids, right? But I mean, I guess that's it. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I thank you for coming on. I hope people listening, watching. I wanted people to get the sense of like, right now, in like I said earlier in the news, Honduran immigrants are in the news and stuff like that. So you get that image, you get that story. But you're a Honduran immigrant, and it's a different kind of story, right? And it's almost kind of like I wanted people to know like Hondurans have been coming to America for a long time. It's not Hondurans aren't a new thing. Honduras isn't a new place. And I remember like, yeah, people, even Mexicans would be like Hindu. Like I'd be like Honduras. They're like Hindu, Indio. But thank you so much for coming on. Any final words? This was you finally are on Latinish, and you are, I guess I don't have to give you a shout out on the podcast because you are now you are my first official Patreon, VIP Patreon. I have to give you a shout out once a month. And who's the other person? You have a person at your work who is a
Oh
Patreon.
yeah, he's a dreamer. He works with me. His name is Alan, and he came up to me and he goes, "By the way, I started contributing to your son's, you know, he's a writer. He likes to write, and I keep telling him, reach out to you.
Yeah, tell me.
And I told you that's one of my greatest accomplishments is getting him hired there. He's a really good person,
Yeah, well, shout out to what's his name, Alan.
Alan.
Shout out to Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mom. Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you. And I'm going to Cabo, so maybe I might not get service in Cabo.
I know. Have fun. You know what? You've earned it. You definitely have earned it. You and Rocio have earned it. So enjoy the fruits of your labor. You're much worked for, labor. You guys are in a place finally where you've strived to get there, and you are there. So enjoy it.
But I mean, we still feel lucky because like people like you and Rocio's dad and Rocio's mom, everybody who came before us worked. We feel a lot harder than us, grinded it out for a long time. And it's just luck, that's what we never forget that it's luck. Yeah, we work hard. Yes, all this stuff. We make moves. Yes. But that's nothing without luck because there's plenty of people who work hard and make moves and have ambition and make plans and then they're unlucky, right? Any little thing could happen, right? Anything could happen that that keeps you from achieving, fulfilling, getting whatever you want. But thank you so much for coming on. I love you. I miss you, and I will be. Maybe you should come to Vegas in the spring, because then I'm gonna go in May, and we'll go see Chris in his play.
I know, definitely. We got to make plans to go see him in his play.
For sure.
I'm looking at April 28th, Saturday, 10:30 show, early in the morning.
I was telling him that, like, imagine Cam. Cam is a star. I feel like Cam is gonna be the biggest star in our family, because she's so talented. She's so talented.
Yeah, you know what? But look at Asmi though.
Oh, I guess I don't know her that well because I moved away and she's growing up really fast. She's what, 4 now or 3?
No, she's only 2.
She's only 2.
She's only 2, and she has such a vocabulary for a 2-year-old. So keep your eye on her, because.
But then I told Chris, like, imagine being a kid, a little girl, and your dad's in a play. Like, that just makes it real. That's just. Now it's a dream, but it's not even like a far away dream. It's like a real dream that you can actually do. And that's so important. Like, if anybody who watches the show, listens to the show, knows that I talk to people and it's always, oh, how did you become what you became? And it's always, oh, my dad did this, or my mom did this, or gave me this when I was, it always goes back to your parents. And just like, I'm sure people are probably picking up on the similarities in the way you and I talk and stuff like that.
That's another show for you to think about. It's people like little kids like Cam right now. This whole pandemic. I mean, you think you have it bad. Imagine growing up during this whole thing.
Well, yeah.
Imagine being a little kid during this whole thing.
It's funny that you say that because, Karina was the first guest and she had just begun freshman year of high school. And she really didn't want to do it, but she liked it. But now she's like, "Oh, when are we gonna we should do a wrap up? I'm about to graduate from high school. We should do a wrap up, and we should, right? Because like she's lived through a pandemic. She's lived through the, I guess at that time Trump was still here, but she's lived through a pandemic at least, and now she's about to be end of high school. So I really want to bring her back on and like, okay, how did your high school years go, and what's it for the future? That's gonna be a good wrap up, but and maybe when Cam's older, she's not gonna be able to. Although she would talk a lot, but she would talk a lot if I had her on the show. She would talk a lot.
She would sing and she would dance too. So maybe you should think about that.
Well, thank you, Mom. I love you so much. Anything you want to say? Final words to the audience?
I just want to say that I hope that maybe 5 years from now, we sit down again and we have another talk about what's going on in the world. And hopefully it'll be in your studio then.
It'll definitely be. We'll definitely do it again. It'll definitely be in our studio. Thank you so much, Mom. I'll talk to you soon. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.